Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolowski, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
Well, hi, and welcome to our podcast today. I have an incredible story, one from the heart of a man that is doing things right. Let's watch.
Even in the dead of winter,
Howdy.
someone always greets you with warmth.
We always say one word. We always say howdy.
Howdy Homemade Vice President Coleman Jones says that's been the foundation of the shop since they started scooping 3 years ago.
It has been really nice being a part of it and how it's been influencing myself and the rest of our employees here. It's been really nice working for a guy like Tom because this is a guy who you can say, hey, he's a great guy.
We started working with people with special needs at some of my other restaurants and decided that the restaurant industry is lots focused, that it isn't about food first, it's about people first.
Owner Tom Landis says he's accomplishing that goal by hiring 14 of his 16 employees with special needs. He says he's had 0 turnover.
So I want to welcome you, Tom Landis, the owner, first of all, of a lot of restaurants. In the past, 13 restaurants you opened, and now you have this fabulous ice cream store called Howdy Homemade Ice Cream. But what it makes it so special is that he hires special needs adults. Tom, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
And from that very video that our audience just saw, what I know and I'd love you to tell us about is the fact that you're now a movie star. So let's see the scoop on that. That little video went viral and you got a lot of attention. You've been in People magazine, you've won awards, and it's this little ice cream shop that I have been in, and every time I go, I've been there 3 times, right? I do buy ice cream. And every time I'm greeted with a howdy, and then fabulous ice cream. We'll talk about the flavors. But the main thing is that it's packed. There are people lined up. So you've made such an impact in our own community. But I'd love for you to talk about now this movie that's coming out and where you're at now. We'll go backwards and hear the rest of it.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for Howdy Homemade. The video is a great example that Jeff did, and because the special needs community is so connected, but also someone sees it in Dallas and has a brother who has a child with special needs in DC, and all of a sudden they're watching it and seeing it and starting to say, hey gosh, because they know that what their child or grandchild is capable of is conquering the restaurant industry. And so then along the lines, somehow Amazon Prime.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they've gotten through a program with Canada and the Canadian Tourism Department, kind of profiling Americans. They chose us, and so October 20th. That'll, I think, view 26 million people will hear about that. And
now let me interrupt a second because I want to be clear. So Jeff Bezos is doing a show, a series. Is that right?
Well, he through his the Amazon Prime company.
Yes.
Yeah. It's exciting. Guy that directed Jimmy Fallon, Sharon Stone, Lucy Liu, Tom Arnold. He's the director for this documentary, and but the real exciting part too is to be able to step back and watch one of my employees succeed that was able to really be the star. And I think what's interesting there too is about a year and a half ago, we sat down with him and his family to have a conversation, and kind of one of those tough conversations. He liked to act in the evenings and different plays, and he's fantastic at it. But if you want to be a manager of an ice cream shop and eventually an owner, that's pretty much evening work. And so's acting, and just you got to pick one or the other. And they made the decision to really, pursue a job in management and at Howdy, and then for him to eventually own one. And,
What's his name?
Kalen O'Brien.
Kalen, and he's there now, right?
Oh yeah, he's been there since day one. But he gave up his acting to do, I think, something that, I mean, in a lot of ways, I'd love to be an actor, but reality is that's a
whole nother thing.
Whole nother thing, tricky, hard to do, whatever. But because he chose to work at Howdy, a year and a half later, he's now going to be on a national TV platform, and that's interesting to see how that's worked. So.
What now? See, isn't that amazing how things can happen at the right place to the right people at the right time? So this is a series, I understand, of documentaries, one of 7. And is there a name for the series?
I believe it's Vacations of the Brave. And,
Vacations of the Brave.
And there'll be more coming out on it in the coming weeks. I think it's all in kind of a post-production.
Sure.
But we spent a couple weeks in Canada and a couple weeks filming here, and just the most beautiful people and the most beautiful country. It was a
they have to
trip
be
of a lifetime, and then also to see so much of Kalen and I were on a business trip together, and it was a bonding experience, and it was awesome. And then I also got to see, I always wonder what is it like to step into the shoes of a parent of a child with special needs, and I don't think that's something I can ever fully do. And yet for a week I got a glimpse of
you were the dad
and interesting and in some ways, because I think there's a beautiful pushing to the boundaries, in part because of my naiveness of what maybe sometimes my employees can or can't do. But I
learned a lot.
I think there's always, at Howdy and a lot of it, there's this beautiful, safe environment for them to have the dignity to fail, get up and go again. So,
Tom, you are you are making really an impact now worldwide. Now that this movie's coming out, it all started in the little ice cream store, which is still in existence. So how did this come about from you being a restaurateur, Texadelphia restaurants among others? How did you come to moving from being a restaurateur to the passion, the commitment of doing it right with hiring special needs adults and making this a focus? What's the backstory?
Well, I think there's always just, it's just fascinating to look at people that are overlooked, I think, in the end, in 2000, 2002, around then, we started creating English as a second language programs that transformed restaurants into classrooms in between lunch and dinner. So during the slow time in a restaurant, when it's not very busy, between lunch and dinner, the TVs often come on with soap operas, telenovelas, whatever. Instead, we said, well, let's put on some English as a second language program so our employees could learn English, move from the back of the house to the front of the house, $2 more an hour. It's amazing that money's an incredible carrot, right? And then creating something. And so then, fast forward looking at all right, what can we do with employees with special needs? We started working with and hiring people with special needs at Texadelphia. And we could see that there was so many successes, but, you know, for example, people have an hour for lunch. Speed is a huge factor in any restaurant. And maybe, you know, put a team of special needs together, and now speed is an issue. So, okay, let's not do burgers, or let's do ice cream, where, you know, people aren't running into an ice cream place saying, I've really got to hurry up. But what they do want is friendliness. So speed isn't the competitive, you know, ruler. It's friendliness, and now you friendliness, and then quality and taste. But we really don't think we're in the ice cream business at all. In fact, I think the restaurant business and the restaurant industry has sort of lost focus that it really is about people first, and the product and the food second. But people in businesses just truly aren't engineered to run that way, and I think that's why the restaurant industry has the biggest turnover rate of any industry right now. And that's where people with special needs, I think, can and will fill the slots. I mean, for a long time there's been, you know, the liability issues that I think restaurants have hid behind, that, oh, we'd love to hire your son or your granddaughter, but we're concerned about her own safety. And they've got some you know, legitimate stance with say fryers and ovens, but for the most part, you come in and you look at my employees, and they're going to be extra safe around that equipment. And I think now, you know, it just makes business sense. We're proving it. It makes business sense. We've zero turnover, and I think other businesses will start following suit.
You said something too when we were when we were together at your ice cream store about the fact that a lot of people would not take some of the jobs they feel might not be as important as others, and yet some of those jobs that you're offering people are life-changing. So what kinds of things, let's bust the myth here. What kinds of things can special needs people do if they've been given an opportunity?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great question, and it's one that we like to talk to any leader of any company about, any manager, anybody, and we ask them this question: is what is the least favorite thing that your employees like to do?
Okay.
And the common denominator across every industry almost always has something to do with repetition. Oh, we're doing the same thing over and over. Gosh, we have to do the same thing over and over again. Well, can you carve out that horrible piece of repetition and give it to someone with special needs? And that's what we're seeing happening at hospitals, where nurses are paid $45 an hour, but 10% of their time is sterilizing cots. That can be done for someone with $10 an hour. Yep. Let the nurses do what they should be paid twice as much to do. Yep. You know, we're seeing it. I saw it as a small example at the local UPS store that I go to, where filling all the mail in the slots is part of each person's responsibility. Well, the guy that is on cashier is not the guy that likes to fill in 43, 33, 43, 33, 33. Right. I mean, but you get someone on the autism spectrum, and they can do it perfectly, quickly. They're not going to make a mistake. They're meticulous.
Yes.
And now they've taken 10% of 10 people's jobs, made it 100% of theirs, and everyone on staff loves them because they're doing and loving the 10% of the work that they previously didn't like doing.
That's so special. Where did all this come from, Tom? You've got the heart to do this. It had to come from somewhere in your background of
Well, I think the heart is above all things deceitful. I honestly, I think, we look to be creative, and there's the creator, and I think Howdy in so many ways is not what I'd like to be doing, or is my dream thing.
Interesting.
It's what I'm called to do, and it I mean, there's days when it's my enemy. It's days when it's I think my family sacrificed a lot. There's one evening at dinner, I asked my kids, I said, who wants to have an I hate Howdy night? And they raised their hands, they shot up, and it just it takes time.
Restaurants take time.
It's nitty, it's gritty.
Yeah.
We're really trying to push a lot of our employees beyond what they or sometimes I think even perhaps maybe their parents think they can or do, and so but then at the same time it's also something I wouldn't give up anything. I wouldn't change anything, and boy, we've had some just crazy ups and downs with it, but where it is now is so exciting. So many people have approached us about franchising and about.
Tell us about that opportunity.
Well, you know what? We have one open in Salt Lake City, and they've been open just over a year, and a beautiful family with a child with special needs, and almost by definition, it would be offensive to think that my passion could ever match theirs. Right, and because if we're on it, like sometimes, gosh, I don't know, this is just too much for me. I give up. I'm throwing in the towel. When it's your child, you don't have that option.
No.
And as a result, they're just doing
They're doing well.
phenomenally better than us. Their sales are phenomenal, and we're learning so much from them. I mean, it just and why? Because whereas I'd say I have 6 years working with special needs, they have 22 years of living with special needs.
That's the difference.
It's entirely different, and so I think maybe God's got me here also because to some degree I like to study college football coaches, and I think that there's just in order to be successful, almost in impartiality that they have of, I want to take your son, put him out on the field, and he's going to go to battle with some others. Well,
get hit.
And get hit, and gosh, make mistakes, and this is the real world, and my employees get made fun of in my own restaurant. They get asked if they're on drugs. They get, and those that's. And you know what though, and that's why they're so brave, and they fight through it. And you know what? Here's the other shocker, but it's not a shocker at all. Is that, man? You think they're not used to that, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That to some degree, the level of disrespect, and a lot of times it's even just ignoring. I try and bring, I was talking before. I feel like if I don't have one of my crew members here with me, that I'm only. I'm Robin, we need Batman here. and that's really the truth. I think the strength in Howdy is that it's not me. You look at so many restaurants and it's chef driven. There needs to be a chef there. That's not the case here. It is all about, at the end of the day, it truly is all about what my employees do that I don't think you or I can do so well, and that's stand on our feet 8 hours a day, day in and day out, and treat people with love and respect when they're, over and over again, over for a $4 scoop of ice cream. I'd like to say that, and I think when I first got in the business, I was great at that. Now it's just, it's amazing to see how our employees with special needs just defy the bar of customer service.
And how does the word howdy come into all this?
I think it's just I think it's a word that neurotypicals kind of look down upon almost. But right, but it's the most friendly word around. And in a lot of ways, I think if you think about it, you can't say howdy in almost like a grumpy way. You're not going to get mad at somebody.
That's probably true.
And
Howdy,
say,
howdy.
like, right? So
Can't do it.
I think and I'm amazed at how many years I went around to other restaurants and was frustrated at the lack of customer service. I mean, I think
we see that all the time.
And now it doesn't get me mad at all. I mean, I think, God says, all right, don't look at things as a problem. Where is there the opportunity? And I look and I'm like, all right, that cashier that's not being friendly, you know what? It's just a matter of time, but it will happen that one of the 240,000 adults with special needs in North Texas alone will come in and take your job and make everybody that comes in there happy. And you know what? Someday, I think within the next 10 years, every McDonald's you go into, every fast food place, you'll either be met with a giant hug by someone with Down syndrome that will just at first make you a little uncomfortable and then make your day. Or someone's going to be on the autism spectrum, because 1 in 67 are currently born on the autism spectrum right now in America.
1 in 67.
It's pandemic. It's growing faster in China and other countries. I mean, it is. So how are we going to employ them, right? There's that whole aspect when 90% of them are currently unemployed or underemployed, but I think you'll be walking into McDonald's, all sorts of restaurants and businesses, and whoever greets you, if they're on the autism spectrum, they will remember your name, your order from 3 weeks ago, exactly who you were with, and it will blow you away.
Well, I was blown away, Tom, when I heard one of your employees give a talk. You were there. It was a speaking engagement, and you had 2 people, and the young man with autism is a fan of baseball. And I'll never forget, you threw it out to the audience and you said, just ask him anything. And they did. And he was just like this. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow. And then the other young man that has Down syndrome, and he got up in his business suit and communicated as clearly as I am. And what he said that was so impactful was, Tom, he said, I don't think of myself as having any problem. In other words, and then he stopped. And it was like us sitting there, well, that's probably a good way we should look at you. I'd love for you to share maybe a couple tips for people who are uncomfortable when communicating with someone of special needs.
Yeah, and that's a great question. We get asked that. And you know what is, I think the first one is really just to be yourself. Speak to anyone as if they're just anybody else. Because a lot of times what we find is that we're talking very slow and very loud.
As if they can't hear or understand.
And meanwhile, the guy with this on the autism spectrum, his brain's going about 400,000 times faster than yours. So you don't need to do that. But also if someone has a hearing impairment or something, they'll let you know. So it is just. And the other thing that I'm amazed, or second would be that is to truly, again, like what we said on the first point, is to be yourself on topics too. Is that if you like football, I think that our customers are amazed at either like Baseball Benjamin, his knowledge of baseball, but Coleman Jones, who's our vice president, of his knowledge of college football. And it's phenomenal because he can bring every single conversation back to Halloween night of 2008 when Michael Crabtree robbed UT of a catch, and it's phenomenal. And when you start to see that, then you start to say, okay, wait, if he can do that, then I know he could probably follow the steps to do a schedule on a restaurant that basically stays the same each week? And then could he order? And ordering seems like a kind of a very daunting task. But if we break it down to, okay, if we're running low on chocolate chips, what do we need to order?
Chocolate chips.
Chocolate chips,
Yep.
and you know, and that's something.
They've got it.
So we just see that again. The goal is not. We don't have a single position for bussing tables. That you know that doesn't exist. It's something everybody does, but we know that everybody. You know, we want them to be striving always for more than that.
You're stretching them. Well, I'm amazed that you are opening this to franchisees. And so, Tom, of all the experiences that you've had through the years, owning restaurants, now kind of shifting in your direction, you probably have learned some things along the way that we would find valuable. I call them teachable points of view. What would you share with our audience in closing that you've learned to pass on?
You know what? I think in almost every situation, people are always striving to kind of prove themselves right, or to act as if they have all the answers. And I really think that, you know, in so much of business today, and I don't think there's a bigger opportunity than so many of the business opportunities related to special needs and empowering people with special needs. But that this way may not be right, that way they may all be right, but to just have an open mind and an open heart, and that I think whoever can harness the power of the special needs community will truly be leading the businesses in the future.
So have an open mind, have an open heart to other people that maybe we haven't considered before. What about your own learning, though, as a person that opened a lot of businesses?
You know what? I think this is that there has been, you know, if you want to be a great leader or a great parent, is get to hang out with some people with special needs. That will help so much. And here's why: you will learn that people with special needs are so much stronger than you thought, and inversely, and at the same time, that you're so much weaker than you thought.
So that's all around opening our minds to diversity. Is there one more from a business perspective you can leave with us?
Well, I think that Howdy Homemade and all of our mission is truly about, not about goosebumps or fist bumps. It's about sales bumps. It's about truly, do people with special needs have the ability to contribute to the restaurant industry? And we think that people with special needs actually have the ability to transform the restaurant industry, to just restore it to what it once was, and that's going to happen with just wonderful human interaction. Yelp is a very good measuring tool for many businesses.
Yes, it is.
It's we are one of the very few businesses that has a constant 5-star Yelp rating. And that has nothing to do with me being in the store. It has everything to do with my employees, you know, breaking out yo-yos, drum sets. I mean, things that are outside the
Playing
line.
with the kids that come in.
Because you know what? They understand kids better than Harvard MBAs.
Those are 3 great tips. If someone wants to consider a franchise in their community, can they contact you?
Yeah.
And your website is?
howdyhomemade.com.
That's easy.
Or Tom at howdyhomemade.com. And we're getting the process, the ball in order for all of that.
That's great. And don't forget to watch October 20th on Amazon Prime for, is it an hour documentary? What
Yeah,
is it?
I'm not sure they're editing it down to the so we have some post-production work on what the timing will be on that. And then also we've got 2 booths and
State Fair.
about 50 employees with special needs
Awesome.
that are working over the 24 days of the Great State Fair of Texas.
Of Texas. That's
and,
great.
You know, what's the first word out of Big Tex's mouth?
Howdy. Tom, thank you so much
Thank you.
for being on the show and bringing us, I mean, honestly, you are so doing it right with things from your heart and all the experience that you're bringing to the business, but you're doing it with special needs people. I've learned a lot, and I know our listeners have too. So I want to just not only thank you, but tell you if you are interested in learning more and didn't write down what Tom said, you can also email me, Valerie at valerieandcompany.com. Until next time, you stay authentic, because this man is certainly, every bone in his body is totally authentic, and that's what being real is about, and that's what brings success. So until next time, we'll hear more stories of successful people who are doing it right. Thanks so much.